Before this starts, comment the number 1 if your family has ever gone broke starting over, and 2 is somebody in your family finally broke that cycle. You'll want to remember which one you typed by the end of this. $1.50. That's what the newspaper costs from the corner store, the one you still buy every Sunday even though you could read the same headlines for free on your phone. You know this because you've bought it every Sunday for 11 years. Same store, same clerk, same fold of the paper under your arm on the walk home. You work days at a regional trucking company outside Columbus, dispatch, the kind of job where the phone never really stops ringing, it just changes urgency. You route drivers, you track delays, you watch a whiteboard fill up with load numbers that used to overwhelm you and now just feel like Tuesday. Your salary lands twice a month, $58,000 a year. After taxes, after the 401k contribution, it comes out to about $1,740 every 2 weeks. You do the math without trying. You've done it so many times that the math does itself now. Mortgage is $1,180, a 3-bedroom you and your wife bought 9 years ago. 2 kids, 7 and 10. Groceries run close to $650 a month if you're not careful, less if you are. What's left isn't nothing. It's just small enough that it doesn't ask to be spent. It asks to be pointed somewhere. One evening in April, you're at your daughter's soccer game and another dad, a guy named Trent who sells insurance, is telling everyone about the truck he just leased. Says he got a great deal, barely anything down, brand new every 3 years. He's grinning like he found a loophole in life itself. You don't say anything, you just nod. But something sticks. Not the truck, the idea that he'll be doing this again in 3 years, and 3 years after that, forever. A payment that never actually ends, just resets. Stick with this one, because Trent shows up again later, and what happens to him is the part everyone in the comments argues about. You go home that night, and you don't go to bed right away. You open a notebook instead, the physical kind, because this isn't something you want living only on a screen. You write down every account your family has. Checking, savings, $4,200, your 401k, $31,000, your wife's, $18,000, a $529 for your son that your mother-in-law started with $500 when he was born and nobody's touched since. You add it up even though you already know the shape of it. It's fine. It's not nothing, but it's also not a plan. It's just money that happened to accumulate while you were busy living. You're not doing this because you feel wealthy. You're doing it because you're thinking about your kids' kids, people who don't exist yet, and realizing nobody in your family has ever thought that far ahead on purpose. Every generation before you started from zero. You want to know what it would take for that to stop being true. Here's the part most people skip past, so slow down for a second. You open a $529 for your daughter that week, the one who doesn't have one yet. You fund it with $75 a month. Automatic, out of the account before you can spend it on something that feels more urgent in the moment. You press confirm, nothing happens. No sound, no message telling you you've made a good decision, just a number that used to say $0 now saying $75, sitting inside an account with your daughter's name on it that she doesn't know exists yet. You almost feel silly. You didn't do anything dramatic, you just moved money into a fund with rules you don't fully understand yet, tax advantages you'll have to look up twice before they make sense. You expect the beginning to feel like a beginning. This one feels like paperwork. For the next few months, you keep working. Same dispatch board, same Sunday paper. You open a small taxable brokerage account too, separate from retirement, separate from the kids' funds, something with no name on it yet except yours. Something you plan to hand down the way your grandfather handed down a pocket watch and nothing else. You start it with $200 and add $50 a week. You don't tell Trent, you don't tell your parents. It's not a secret exactly, it's just not a story yet. There's nothing to tell. Nobody starts this looking like they're starting anything. That's the truth of it. You don't feel like a man building a legacy. You feel like a guy with a notebook and 3 new accounts that add up to less than the truck Trent just leased. If you're the type who checks your own accounts right after watching something like this, drop a "checking now" in the comments. You're not the only one. The feeling doesn't arrive with the decision. It arrives decades later if it arrives at all, and usually to someone who isn't you. You go to your daughter's next game, the whiteboard at work fills up the same way it always does, and somewhere in 3 separate accounts you can barely picture together, a little more money sits than did a month ago. It doesn't know your kids' names. It doesn't know anything about you at all. It doesn't need to. That's the part that will take you years to understand. And the next 4 years are where this either falls apart or it doesn't. Keep watching. 4 years in, the newspaper still costs $1.50. That part hasn't changed. Almost everything else has, just quietly enough that you didn't notice until now. Your daughter's 529 sits at $4,900. Your son's, the one your mother-in-law started, is up to $9,800 between her contributions and yours. The brokerage account, the one with no name on it yet, crossed $14,000 last month, built out of $50 a week you never really felt leaving. You didn't inherit anything. Your wife didn't either. Her parents raised 4 kids on a factory income and did well just to retire without debt. That was the whole plan for both your families, for as far back as anyone can trace it. Get through, don't go under, hope the kids figure out something better. You're trying to be the first generation that hands something forward instead of just hoping the next one manages. Comment first gen below if that's you too, because this next part is going to hit different depending on your answer. Trent leases his second truck that spring, right on schedule, 3 years to the month. He shows it off at the next soccer game, same grin. You say it looks good. It does. Later, in the parking lot, you overhear him on the phone with someone, voice low. Something about the payment being higher than he budgeted for, but it's fine, it's handled. You don't say anything. You just load your kids into your 9-year-old car, the one with a rattle in the door you've been meaning to fix. You haven't fixed it. You've been putting that money somewhere else. This is the moment people always ask about in the comments. No, you never told Trent. Keep that in mind. It matters later. Your combined accounts cross $40,000 that November, counting everything, retirement, taxable, both kids' 529s. Nobody at work knows the number. Nobody asks. There's no version of this conversation that fits into a dispatch office built for talking about football and traffic patterns. You go home that night, same as always. You read the Sunday paper on the couch while your kids do homework at the kitchen table. And you think, briefly, about the two of them 30 years from now. And then you stop thinking about it, because that's a strange thing to sit with for too long on a Tuesday. Now, here's where it almost breaks. Don't skip this part. The drop starts with a phone call in August. Your father-in-law has a stroke. Not fatal, but serious enough that your mother-in-law needs help, needs someone nearby for a few months, needs money for a home health aid that isn't covered the way anyone assumed it would be. You and your wife don't hesitate about helping. That was never the question. The question is where the money comes from. And for the first time since you started this, you have an actual answer instead of a scramble. You pull $6,000 from the taxable brokerage account, the one with no name on it, the one you'd been quietly thinking of as untouchable. It doesn't feel like failure. It feels like exactly what the account was for, even though you never wrote that down anywhere. Legacy isn't only about the money that survives you. Sometimes it's the money that shows up for the people who came before you at the exact moment they need it. Your mother-in-law never asks how you had it ready. You never explain. Some things don't need a whole conversation. They just need to be there when the moment arrives. The account rebuilds slower than it emptied, the way these things do, but it rebuilds. By the following spring, it's back past where it started, plus a little more, because you didn't stop the $50 a week even during the months it felt pointless to keep feeding an account you just drained. Your supervisor calls you into the office on a Thursday afternoon. Not the dispatch floor, the actual office, the one with a door that closes. Her name is Nadine. She's run the regional office for 13 years, and she offers you a district coordinator role. More pay, about $11,000 a year, more travel too. 3 nights a week on the road, missing soccer games, missing Sunday papers on the couch. 10 years ago, you might have said yes just for the title. You ask for a few days to think about it instead. This is the decision most people in the comments say they'd have gotten wrong. Would you have taken it? You go home and open the notebook, the same one from the beginning, now full of numbers and a handwriting that's gotten faster and messier over the years. You do the math slower than you used to. The raise is real. It's also 3 nights you currently don't lose, 3 nights of homework help and soccer games and the newspaper on the couch that your kids will only be young enough to want you around for a handful more years. You turn it down. Not because the money doesn't matter, but because you've started to understand that the legacy you're building isn't only the accounts. It's also just being there, consistently, boringly, every Sunday, for the two people who are going to inherit both the money and the habits someday. Nadine doesn't push. She nods and moves on to the next name on her list. No one throws you a parade for turning down more money. No one even notices, really, except you. You just quietly keep your evenings. Your son turns 18 and gets into a state school. His 529 covers almost the whole first year without either of you touching a loan application. He doesn't fully understand yet what that means, that most of his friends are about to start their adult lives already behind, and he is about to start his without that weight. You don't make a speech about it. You just help him move into the dorm and drive home. Your daughter, 16 now, finds the notebook one afternoon looking for a pen. She asks what all the numbers are. You almost brush it off, the way your own parents would have. Instead, you sit down and show her, slowly, what a 529 is, what compound growth actually looks like over a decade instead of a headline, what the taxable account is for, and why it has no name on it yet. You don't tell her what to do with any of it someday. You just tell her what the numbers mean. She writes some of it down in her phone. You don't know if she'll do anything with it. That wasn't really the point. Trent leases his fourth truck that same year. You see him at your daughter's graduation party, still driving, still grinning, still telling the story about how good the deal is. You've stopped finding it strange. It's just Trent's version of the same question everyone's answering differently, whether they know it or not. Comment Trent if you know somebody exactly like this. Everybody does. You're 54 now, still in dispatch, though you took a smaller promotion eventually on your own timeline once it stopped costing you evenings. Your combined accounts, retirement, brokerage, what's left of both 529s after two kids' tuitions sit past $310,000. Your parents never had a number like that in their whole lives combined. Neither did your wife's. You still buy the Sunday paper, $1.50, though the store changed owners twice and the price crept up a quarter somewhere without you noticing exactly when. Discipline compounds the same way money does. Nobody tells you that part. The habit of funding something before you can spend it. The habit of choosing the boring option over the loud one. 20 years of that doesn't just build an account. It builds two kids who watched it happen closely, quietly, without ever being told it was a lesson. That part was never in the notebook, and it's worth more than anything that was. Your daughter opens her own brokerage account the month she gets her first real paycheck. She doesn't ask you for advice. She just mentions it, the way you'd mention anything ordinary. And you realize she already knows more at 22 than you did at 40. You didn't build a fortune. You built a pattern, and patterns are the only thing that actually survive a person. Somewhere in that same town right now, there's a 28-year-old you've never met sitting at a kitchen table with a notebook and 3 kids worth of nothing saved yet, staring at a number that doesn't feel like it matters to start with. He doesn't feel like he's starting a legacy. He just feels like tired of watching his family story reset to zero every single generation. His hand is already reaching for a pen. You already know what happens after that. So go back to the top for a second. Did you type 1 or 2? Tell me in the comments which generation you're planning to be, the one that resets or the one that finally doesn't. I read every single one.